Welcome, David Berceli, and thank you so much for taking time for this little interview. Uh, I know that you have the same challenge now in the States as we have here in Denmark. We have people, soldiers coming home from war, really being traumatized, but not wanting to talk to therapists or psychologists or anything. And you seem to have a way into and out of that challenge. Would you say something
Mm,
about that?
yeah. Um, because I've lived in war for many years, I realize what the reality of that experience is like and how difficult it is at times to speak about it. Now, if we take a population like soldiers, whether they're male or female soldiers, when they go to war, many of them, this is their first time to ever experience anything like war, that type of violence. And so they have no idea how that has affected them, mostly until they come back and they discover that they don't know how to integrate what they've just experienced, which is often life or death threatening situations, and then how to reintegrate those experiences back into society. So oftentimes when soldiers come back, they feel alone or isolated, or they feel as though other soldiers are the only people that could understand them because they don't believe at all that anyone could understand the experiences they've gone through. For much of that, soldiers don't want to talk about the experiences. It's oftentimes too painful for them to do it. They often don't even like meditating because simply closing their eyes begins to cause their mind to wander, and it goes back to these traumatic or painful experiences they had during war. So it was important to begin to find a way to help a soldier from where they are. What perspective do they have about their experiences overseas, and how do they perceive that when they come back? Many soldiers don't want to go to therapy, oftentimes because there's an implication that if they go to therapy, they're going to have to talk about the experience. They're going to have to relive the painful experiences. Therapy might suggest that they were weak, or that they weren't strong soldiers, or that something might even be wrong with them, um, and therefore they haven't held themselves up to the image or standards that they believed were part of their military requirement. So even going to a therapist has a suggestion of weakness to many soldiers. So what I realized was, if soldiers don't want to talk about their experience, if they feel that there's a weakness in going to therapy about it, but they're still being very disturbed in terms of their memories or their sleep patterns or agitation, what's a way into the soldier's life that would be a safe and effective way to help soldiers still recover from any trauma or stressful experiences they had? What I discovered was it was very easy to do exercises with soldiers. Soldiers understand the word exercise. It's non-threatening. They're actually designed to actually enjoy many exercises. And so when I would approach soldiers and say, well, what we're going to do is simply a series of exercises, immediately they felt very comfortable. They understand what exercises mean. They know how to do them. And I guide them through a series of exercises. Now, in these particular exercises, the trauma releasing exercises, what happens is it begins to evoke a mild tremoring response in the body. And so what I've told soldiers when this tremoring response happens is that it's nothing but the muscle tissue beginning to relax itself. You've been in stress, you've been in war, your muscles are now starting to tremor in terms of having a reaction of relaxation. So I tell them, just observe which muscle groups are tremoring, and that way you'll understand what's the tension pattern that you specifically picked up when you were in war. Well, this does a number of things. First of all, it gets them to relax and to just give in to the tremoring response. And so the muscle tissue begins its relaxation process. It also gets them to focus on their body and focus on it right in the present moment. So I'm not asking them about war or their past. I'm saying notice your body now. Notice the tremoring that's going on in the muscles, because right now what's going on in your muscles is the beginning of the relaxation process of whatever tension you picked up in war. So immediately they begin to feel like they're relaxing, they're concentrating on the present moment, and they're focusing on their body right here and now. When they finish the exercise routine, I simply ask them, how do you feel right now? And if a soldier can say, I just feel more relaxed, I feel more calm, I feel like my mind is just without any agitation in it. And if they go home and they sleep well that night, which is often the inevitable result of these exercises, so what I find is if after they've done the exercises with me one time and they go home, they repeat the exercise and they're able to sleep more deeply at night, which is often the result of these exercises, they're absolutely sold on them immediately. Because what does a soldier want more than anything? To be able to come home and to finally relax. Because usually when they've been living in war, they haven't had a good night's sleep at all. They haven't felt relaxed. They've often lived in tension or even traumatic events. Now they come home, they just want to rest and relax. And if these exercises help to evoke that rest and relaxation response at a deeper level, they're completely sold on it, and now they'll do it by themselves. And what I discovered is when they rest and relax, they take out the anxiety or the high tension response around the stories of the experiences that they had. And oftentimes they'll now begin to tell me the story. And they'll say something like, you know, the most difficult time was when we were under fire. And they tell me the story of being under fire, but they no longer have the anxiety around the story because the body is in a more relaxed state. So now they're telling it as a historical experience in the past, and it's no longer loaded with the emotional content and the high energetic content that it had before they were able to relax their body.
Mm-hmm. How big groups can you work with?
Well, with soldiers, because they generally tend to have a very strong sense of boundaries and groundedness, certainly as a group, there's a cohesiveness with them. I can work with as high as 150 soldiers at one time, because it's really just taking them through exercises, and it's no different than doing their physical exercise routines, which they do every morning or every evening or whatever. And so they're used to doing exercises in large groups. And soldiers generally tend to have very strong boundaries simply because they are designed to be that way. Be solid, be strong, build a boundary, have a container. Now they use different words, but that's precisely what they're doing. So that when they do the exercises, there's almost no possibility, and I've seen very little of it, even though I've worked with 5,000 soldiers, that they would have flooding or freezing or dissociative responses. They feel very much as a collective group, as an organized group, and that strong sense of boundary with each other seems to be able to hold a strong containment, so that as they reduce their stress levels, even as a group of 150, they actually begin to feel that all of them are becoming calmer and more relaxed. And so therefore it has a collective effect as well as an individual effect of getting the soldiers to restore themselves back to a natural state of calmness.